My 3.5-year-old great niece came to visit in mid-June 10. Our electricity was out on a beautiful 100 plus degree day. After playing with her in the pool, I went to pick up some ice and drinks for everyone. Upon returning, my wife informed me that the little girl reported that a mean man tried to kick me. Wife had gone inside to the restroom, while niece waited in the living room. I picked her up and walked her to the dark house, 12 to 15-year-old house. I wanted to calm her down, and I told her we would get rid of the mean man. After covering the entire house, she pointed into the living room. She said, "There and there," while pointing out two locations. I asked if he was still here. She looked up at the ceiling, then around the room. She shook her head. She repeated after me a demand that the man leave and never return. An hour later, she and I were playing in the pool. She got out to retrieve a ball from just inside a gate near the pool. When she reached for the ball, she jolted into a stiff, upright position. She then turned and ran, screaming, "He's on the fence now. He's trying to scare me." She tried to look twice, but turned away as if it were too repulsive to look at. I screamed, "Tell him to go away." She turned and yelled out, "Go away." She then completely relaxed and joined me in the pool. My wife and son were both within feet of her when this occurred. My teenage son, that was creepy. I asked her where he went. She pointed to my attached storage room/shed. He went in that other house. We were slightly creeped out. When her mom, my niece, returned, we relayed the story to her. She was shocked. Never had she seen her daughter act that way or speak of imaginary friends, etc. P-Mean Man tried to kick me for some reason I cannot explain. I went into my house alone while everyone was outside. I used my iPhone 3G with its crappy camera to take approximately 35 pictures of the area in my living room where she saw the man. I never looked at them until the next evening. Every picture was clear with one exception. One picture was slightly blurry. I almost deleted it without zooming in for details. When I zoomed into the doorway, what I saw made my eyes tear and my skin crawl. A human face. A man. It looks oversized or possibly closer than it appears. I've shown it to dozens of people. Most see it instantly. I cannot see it on my computer, but can see it clearly on my iPhone. Due to pixel count, I'm sure. I am happy to share the photo to anyone interested to see it. As long as you can view it on your cell, you will see it. Send me an email to jlj0906@gmail.com if I can request. I will send the pic. If you get the pic, I want your feedback. This is my wife and I reflecting on many occurrences since we moved here 3 years ago. Unexplained noises. My teenage daughter feels creeped out in one of the bedrooms, right next to the sighting spot. A very strange photo taken of my son when we first moved here. A picture of him with a skeleton next to him. I do not have it. No one knows who snapped it. The camera phone it was on was destroyed in a rainstorm. I have no idea how my brain excused that one away. In fact, if I could find that picture, it would be one of the most startlingly clear and creepy photos you have ever seen. As of this past week, our Shih Tzu stares at the same doorway and trembles. She snapped up on our bed the other night and screamed, not barked, screamed at the doorway to my bedroom. Wife heard the back door open after going to bed. Dogs heard it too. They ran into the living room, barking. Uncharacteristic. No one there, of course. The last occurrence was 2 nights ago. We painted a room. The room that creeps out my teen daughter. There's a file cabinet in a closet. My wife dragged it out so I could put computer behind it. When I started to push it back into the closet, I noticed the drawers were faced toward the closet door. I started spinning the cabinet around so I could place it back into the closet as it was drawers out. She walked into the room and questioned why I was spinning it around. Once we talked it out, we both realized. Somehow the cabinet had been turned around without our assistance. She loves living here. This one incident made her ready to pack her bag. This is my second story and a continuation on the events that happened when my family and I lived in Dothan, Alabama on Chadwick CR. My wife and I have discussed more of the events that took place in that house since I submitted my last story, and we remember a bit more that we would like to share. Fred was the name of the last ghost I wrote of in my first story, but as I mentioned there, we never saw him again, but we did have a cold spot in the workshop/storage room in the garage for quite some time. We lived in a townhouse with 2 floors, the master bedroom being downstairs and the other 2 bedrooms upstairs. The stairs going to the second level met a landing that overlooked the living room. The doors to the 2 upstairs bedrooms could be seen from below. The layout of the house was very open, and my wife was very happy with the decorating opportunities it provided. We were all very happy with our home when some odd things began to happen to each of us, myself, my wife, and my 2 boys who were 12 and 7 at the time, I believe. We parked in the back of the house inside of the garage and walked into a sunroom and then into the kitchen. You could literally stand at the back door and see the front door. The stairs were against the wall to the right of the front door. Well, as I would come home and no one would be at home, I began to see a weird movement in my periphery going up the stairs. So after a while, I started making a point to look at the stairs every time I came to the back door. Sure enough, whenever I was alone, I would see a blurry outline of what seemed like the shape of a head leaning over the stair rail and looking at me. Then it would shoot up the stairs and nothing would be there. This was very odd, and so I began to rule out the logical possibilities. I would see it any time of the day, but there was a bay window in the living room, and the door had a window, so it might have been light from outside. Well, we put curtains up in the windows, and the door mainly to keep the house cool, but it had the side effect of blocking the light. I did not tell my wife or sons, as I did not want to alarm them. So after around 6 months or so, I was eating lunch with my wife on a Saturday, and she asked me a very peculiar question. Have you ever seen anything weird in the house since that first time? I said I had, but then I asked her if she had seen anything. She answered that she was seeing someone on the stairs when she came to the back door, and before she could finish, I interrupted and said, and then they shoot up the stairs real fast, right? Well, of course, now we both knew something was going on which freaked us out, but it did not feel like a bad thing, so we were more interested than anything else. We agreed that it was not Fred because this seemed like a different and more interactive spirit. We turned one of the upstairs bedrooms into a family room and had the boys sleep in the same room. When you were in that room by yourself, you would get a sense of being watched, and the best way to describe the feeling is that when someone walks in a room, the air pressure changes, and when you're paying attention, you can notice it. Well, this room was always like that, and we kept the doors shut to the outside, and it still happened. We even tested the front and back doors and the air conditioner to recreate the feeling, but it just did not feel the same. The final thing that happened to my family was on a night when I was at work late, and my family was in the family room upstairs playing, and all of a sudden one of the cabinets in the upstairs bathroom slammed really and scared the crap out of them. My son also said that around that night, he tried to open his door to his room from the inside, and someone was holding it shut, and then it opened by itself, sending him running downstairs. We never really got scared and never really felt like it was a bad presence, but there was something there for sure. This house had some supernatural stuff going on, but it was nothing compared to our previous rental home, which I will have to share with you another time. I believe in ghosts, and I have seen a few, and I would like to share what I have seen. I lived in Dothan, Alabama for quite a few years before I finally escaped and moved to Maryland. My wife and I owned our house in Dothan, and we loved it, but it was, I believe, haunted. I won't say the exact address, but it was on a street called Chadwick CR. We purchased it around 2004 and lived there for 2 years. The lady we purchased it from was quite old, and her daughter met us at the closing. We all drove over to the house, and her mother was there to say goodbye to her neighbors. She was very kind and spoke with me about how she loved the house, but could not walk up the stairs anymore, and how she was glad that a family would be moving in. We have 2 boys, and so the house was perfect for us. While she was speaking to me, she started to mention her deceased husband and how he had died in the house, which is more common than not and did not freak us out really. She said he was a Fred, by which she meant his name was of course Fred, but was an old southern lady speaking, and sometimes they have a different way of saying things. So we move in and get unpacked, and we are really happy. The house originally had a sunroom in the back, but they built a garage and connected it to the house. There was also a storage/workshop inside the garage, which I liked since I could put all my tools and stuff in there. The family had left several items hanging on the walls, and some of them were military in nature. So I decided to honor that and leave them up. Well, so here's the freaky part. I was unable to get to sleep one night soon after we moved in, and I decided to organize my junk in the storage room. The odd thing was it was super cold in there. Anyone who's even passed through Dothan knows how crazy hot it is. And it was summer, and this night was no exception. Now, I was in the storage room, like I said, and I could look into the house from where I was because the back door was open. The glass from the sunroom was tinted, which was the room the back door was connected to. So if you have the back door open, you can see in, but the sunroom is blocked by the glass. Okay, so I am looking in the direction of the back door, and all of a sudden this tall old man walks right past the door and behind the glass that is tinted. My first thought is, holy crap, someone is in my house. And he is tall and just should not be there. I grabbed an aluminum softball bat and ran in the house looking for this joker. He was not in the sunroom, which was weird. He was nowhere downstairs, and the windows and doors were locked and closed, and I rushed upstairs to check the kids' rooms, and nothing. So I go back downstairs and lock the back door, and go out the front to look around outside, and no one was there. That's when I remembered Fred. I got a little spooked, so I went back inside and went to bed. I told my wife the next morning, and after she calmed down, we both decided it must have been him. We have since come to the conclusion that he was just giving us a once-over and telling us he accepted us because we never saw him again, but I never got a bad feeling in that house, but you knew something was there. Eventually, the storage room stopped being cold and returned to normal. Maybe he finished his honey-do list. Anyways, we did see and hear a few other things, but I don't think it was him. I will have to share that some other time. First off, I want to say I will not fully explain the layout of the place where this happens. I work at a jail in Alabama, and I'm going to leave it at that to protect me and my fellow officers. I started working at the jail almost 6 months ago. I enjoy my job, and I take some pride in what I do. Think of a flower with the petals being different section, and the center is a control tower. We monitor the different section from the windows, and there is a small walkway that goes around the tower, so you may get closer look. The walkway is the only way into the tower, and there are reflective mirrors, so you can look below the tower without leaving. I work second shift, which is from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is good, because we don't get many problems because the inmates are sleeping, but it's kind of boring sometimes. I was in tower my first night, and my training officer went to the bathroom, leaving me alone. I was walking around the tower and looking into the sections, and noticed a shadow past the door. I buzzed the door thinking it was my training officer, but no one opened the door. I heard him call on the radio all the way across the jail for someone to find a key to the lobby. I looked up at the mirror to see if someone was hiding, but no one was there. I thought it was the shift messing with the new guy, but no one was there. This happened at least once every 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't think much of it because you're in a small room for 12 hours with no one around. You start to see things sometimes out of the corner of your eyes. I kept seeing it, however. Some nights I would just stare at the door watching it or walk to the door and stare outside just trying to catch someone, but I never saw anything. Finally, I started asking around, and apparently an inmate had hung himself because his girlfriend cheated on him, and he had found out in a letter. I eventually found out from other officers that they had seen the same thing and was a regular occurrence. I thought it was always cool when he walked by a shadowy type person who must be tall because he took up some of the window on the door. I never thought he would be a problem until I started seeing him more and more. It was at the jail, but I also saw him at other places. It was only when I'm with my girlfriend, who is also another officer. We don't really show it at work to protect ourselves, but every time I'm with her, I feel like someone is watching me, mainly in the jail. Is this normal for ghosts? I do believe in ghosts, but I've never had to deal with anything like this. It started when I was 6. My grandmother died, and I was really depressed. I went into my room, and was about to turn on the radio when I heard a strange noise coming from my bathroom. When I went in, I saw my grandmother sitting on the floor spreading out tarot cards. She looked at me and held up a card with the devil on it. I was pretty scared, so I went to my mom and got a psychic to investigate. She burned some kind of sage in every corner of the house and said there was nothing else she knew what to do because we are atheists. The next thing happened when I was 8. We lived in a really old house in Lebanon, Ohio, historical area. I was really into the whole ghost thing ever since my encounter with my grandmother. So when the owner told us it used to be part of the Underground Railroad, I got excited, knowing that most of those houses have secret passages for escaping slaves. So we investigated and found a passage in my room under the carpet that led to the basement. About 2 weeks after we moved in, I was sleeping in my room and heard whispers on my balcony. I got up and went to the door that led out to it and saw a dark figure at the bottom of the stairs. I started to feel a strange force, like he was pulling or someone was pushing me down the stairs. When we got down to the backyard, it opened the basement door, and as I looked in, I could see 5 or 6 African American people in rags just staring at me, pointing up to the passageway it opened, and I could see a young boy looking down and closing it. Though it seemed to be minutes later, within seconds the people vanished and my parents were coming down the stairs. Another encounter I had was a few weeks ago. I was sitting on the couch in the living room. From where I sat, I could see the bathroom doorway. My parents were at work, and I was home alone sick. I was watching TV when I heard the door open. I looked up and saw yet another young boy just staring at me. I blinked and looked back. The door was still open, but the young boy was gone, and the room began to fog. I asked my parents about the history of the house. About 20 years ago, a young boy ran away and was found dead in the creek. Cause of death unknown. My husband and I live in an apartment right now. The same apartment complex my mom and dad lived in when I was 3, and I am 23. So they're not brand new apartments. We have been living there for 5 months. Weird things started happening about a month ago. Just so you all know, I am familiar with the paranormal. My parents' house, the one I grew up in, is haunted as well. This first thing was slight, but I noticed. I am very aware of my cats and how they act and their different little quirks. And the first odd thing involved my oldest cat, Davy. I get up early every morning, Monday through Friday, for work. So this particular morning wasn't very different. Got up at 0430, took a shower, got dressed, and went into the living room to dry my hair. I don't like being in the steamy bathroom after my shower. Davy followed me into the living room to watch me dry my hair. As usual, it really interests her. And as I did so, she watched for a few minutes, and then I noticed her looking around me, behind me, at the wall. She was following something with her eyes, and the something was darting back and forth on the wall. She never does anything like this unless she spots a moth that happened to get in the house. So I looked behind me to see if that was what happened, and absolutely nothing was there. I looked back at her, slowly getting creeped out by her strange behavior. And the thing she was focused on seemed to be hovering around me then. That's all that happened, but it scared me. I haven't had anything weird happen in our apartment, and I was hoping nothing would start up. A couple days later, I woke up again, 0430, showered, and that day I was wearing a dress that came to my knees. So I wore thigh highs underneath the dress and was slipping them on. Yes, this is relevant to the story. And as I did so, someone or something whistled at me. I stood still as stone, shocked and surprised and scared. Now, my husband gets up way later than me, so it wasn't him, and there was no one else in the house. I have no idea who gave me the cat call, but it was very scary.